Welcome to Tobisonics. It is Tuesday, the 9th of March, 2021. I hope you've all had a great start to the week and that you had a nice weekend. In today's episode, we're going to be putting the Abbey Road Saturator up against the Fabfilter Saturn 2. Musical analog saturation and distortion from the legendary Abbey Road Studios. That is how Waves described the Abbey Road Saturator on their website. Modeled directly from time-proven saturation chains at Abbey Road Studios, Abbey Road Saturator provides inspiring saturation and distortion unlike any other device. From subtle harmonic enhancement to powerful distortion effects, the Abbey Road Saturator is a singular twist on what we know saturation and distortion plugins to be. Take your music to the outer limits. That is how Fabfilter described the Saturn 2 on their website. The Saturn 2 comes with 28 different distortion styles, from subtle tube saturation to heavy guitar amps and bit crushing, multi-band processing, endless modulation options, plus a host of other features. We're going to be revisiting the production for my new single, Eye of the Storm. I used the Fabfilter Saturn 2 extensively for shaping tone and timbre. I want to know if the Abbey Road Saturator could have done a better job. Would it have offered me different options to help create more depth, more contrast, and more flavor in the production? Yes, that's right. In this week's episode, we're going to be doing that thing you should never do: second guess your production decisions. We're going down the rabbit hole. Before we get into it, if you could just take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel, that would be fantastic. Thank you for taking the time. Let's kick things off with a feature instrument, the Vapor Synth. We've got the bass, drums, and percussion going to give you some kind of context. And right now we've got the Fabfilter Saturn 2 sat on the synth exactly the way it is in the production. All right then, first up, let's drop the Fabfilter Saturn 2 into bypass. And I've dropped the Abbey Road Saturator onto the signal chain, and I've called up a preset, Simply Juicier. I've just played around with the compander settings a little bit. I've flipped the phase, I've moved the crossover points, and what that's doing with it is it's just giving me a little bit more body. Let's have a listen and see what that's doing. I really like the way that the Abbey Road Saturator is kind of lifting the synth up and making it kind of wider. The compander in particular is very impressive for how much you can affect tone with it. You can really shift tone around very intuitively, very easily, and I like what that phase thing is doing to it, the way it's kind of sitting the saturation off the channel slightly and increasing that width and excitement. As a standalone sound, I like it a lot. I think once you put it back into the production, the whole production would have to shift around to accommodate it. You can hear that it's frequency masking some of the tops of the percussion and things like that. It's getting in the way of the snare a little bit. But it's very cool like that. I like that. It's a good sound. I like the options it gives you. Next up, let's have a listen to what in fact is the pair of two synths that make up the verse loop and come back in at this final part of the chorus. It was really difficult to balance this off against the main synth sound. Let's start by dropping the Fabfilter Saturn 2 into bypass. I've dropped the Abbey Road Saturator onto the signal chain, and I've called up another preset, Synth ARP Driver. I've had a little bit of a tweak, and once again I've been playing around with the compander. So this time I've actually flipped the phase back in phase so that the saturation is sitting tighter onto the synth, because I want it kind of sitting in the middle there. I don't want it getting out into the whips. Let's have a listen and see what it's doing to this verse synth. again, we're sacrificing some of the body that we had with the Fabfilter Saturn. Oh, but I love the fizz and bite that the Abbey Road Saturator is giving it. It's really exciting. Next up, we've got ourselves a choir, and the Fabfilter Saturn is on a subtle tape setting with quite a bit of drive, and it's adding some additional width, and it's also helping to bed those voices and kind of glue them together and get them to sit together in the mix. All right, first things first, let's take the Fabfilter and let's drop it into bypass. And I've dropped the Abbey Road Saturator onto the signal chain and called up the preset Subtle Vocal Heat. Once again, we've had a little bit of a play with it. I've flipped the phase again. I really like that option, and it's just giving me some extra width. I've kept the compander the same, but I've increased the blend. It was down at about 40%. I've lifted it up to about 90%. Will it be too much? Let's find out. Once again, we're hearing how good the Abbey Road Saturator is at adding a kind of lift and a kind of high frequency shimmer and an excitement to a track. Finally, let's have a listen to this kids choir and what the Fabfilter Saturn 2 is doing for it. We've got it set to subtle transformer, and what's interesting about this is it's adding some lift, some width, and some brightness to the kids choir, which is very similar to what we've been finding the Abbey Road Saturator is good for. So let's see if the Abbey Road Saturator can be beaten at its own game. First things first, let's take that Fabfilter Saturn 2 and let's just drop it into bypass. Then I've dropped in the Abbey Road Saturator and I've called up another preset, and with this time we're on Red Strings Enhancer. Let's have a little look at a couple of things I've changed. First up, I've changed the saturator from the red saturator to the TG. Just like what it's bringing to it. It's bringing a kind of fragility to it that I like. I've adjusted the gain. I've backed it off a touch. I've also adjusted the mix. I've just blended it down a little bit more, just down to around sort of 80 something. Just giving a little bit of the dry signal in there just to keep some of the body. Let's have a listen to what all that sounds like. I like the way the Abbey Road Saturator is, again, it's lifting it up. It's helping me control the dynamics of the track, the way that the voice is shifting. The compander is very good for that. I'm not loving the tone it brings up. I don't think it sits that well on this particular instrument. I think the Saturn suited this instrument more. Okay, let's have a quick compare and contrast. So here we go. This is how it is in the original production with the Fabfilter Saturn 2 sat on the feature synth, the verse synth, and both the choir and the kids choir. Let's switch it over, drop the Abbey Road Saturator on everything, and see how it all sounds. For me, this is a real mixed bag. I really like what the Abbey Road Saturator is doing to the burst synths, that ba 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 ba, the stabbing in. It's giving it a really great sense of excitement. I love that. If I'd had the Abbey Road Saturator when I was doing this production, 100%, that would be on it. The same, I think, is true of the choir voice, the lower choir voice. I like the kind of subtlety it's bringing to it, the kind of depth that it's bringing to it. It's sitting very nicely in there against the mix. When it comes to the feature synth, honestly, I don't love the tone I'm getting from that. Don't think it's working quite as well with the Abbey Road Saturator. I actually prefer what the Saturn's doing, even though it's not as exciting, it's not as, it's a little bit more lo-fi, but it's just giving that body. And the same's true of the kids choir. Again, I don't think the saturator is really suiting that particular voice. Before we call it a day, let's try mixing and matching the Abbey Road Saturator with the Fabfilter Saturn. And what I want to know is, does having the extra flavor and options that the Abbey Road Saturator is going to give me, is that going to add extra contrast and depth to the production? That's right, we're going all the way down the rabbit hole. Here we go with a mix and match of the Fabfilter Saturn 2 with the Abbey Road Saturator. And straight off, you're going to catch that I've kept both the Saturator and the Saturn for the feature synth. For that main synthesizer instrument, I've actually kept both of them on there. I like the body and weight that the Saturn 2 was bringing to it, but I did like that width and shimmer and that little bit of excitement that the Abbey Road Saturator was bringing to it. I have blended it on a fairly low mix. We're down there at about 30 on the mix, just lifting it in there enough. It's not doing crazy amounts, it's just helping it out a little bit. That first vapor burst is awesome like that. I love what the Abbey Road Saturator is doing for that. And the blend between the two choir voices is really great now. I really like the effect of having the Saturator on the lower choir and then the Fabfilter Saturn on the kids choir. So we went down the rabbit hole, we revisited the production. What have we learned? Would the Abbey Road Saturator have given it something extra that it doesn't have right now? Well, yes, it would have, without a doubt. The verse synth in particular works really well with the Saturator. I love the bite and excitement that it brings to it. I think the contrast between the two choir voices works really well when you've got one with the Saturn, one with the Saturator. And there's no doubt that blending in a little bit of the Saturator on that feature synth, on that main instrument, is definitely helping it. If you've enjoyed this week's trip down the rabbit hole, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for taking the time. Eye of the Storm is out right now. Go give it a listen. Let me know what you think about the production. Questions and comments below, or you can catch me on social media at Tobisonics. Thank you for watching. Until next Tuesday, good night and good noise. Stay safe and stay healthy.